What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Next Pats podcast. I'm Phil Perry. It's the Jack Jones Extravaganza podcast for you this week. We had to talk to the Patriots rookie cornerback after his big pick six and forced fumble and fumble recovery against the Packers in a losing effort, but still a breakout kind of performance for the fourth rounder out of Arizona State. As soon as that game ended, and as soon as we heard from him after the game, I wanted to know more about Jack Jones's mindset, about how he's been able to play the ball so well, really dating back to the start of his collegiate career at USC and then making his way to Arizona State. And we'll get into some of those numbers in a bit here on the podcast. But first, I just wanted to remind the people, in case you missed it, and I'm not sure how you missed it if you're a real Patriots fan, but phenomenal comments from Jack Jones after the Green Bay game about how he felt when Aaron Rodgers tried to beat him with an out route that he obviously jumped and took to the house. Let's hear that sound from Jack Jones in Green Bay the night of the game. And then let's listen to his veteran teammate and locker mate right next to him inside the Patriots locker room, Devin McCourty, this week at Gillette Stadium, and his reaction, get his reaction to Jack Jones's comments. Let's listen to both those guys right now.
Personally, I feel like it's disrespectful to throw an out route on me. If you could throw the ball past me to get to the receiver, I'm no good.
I'm happy he's playing with confidence. I think our job as veterans is to help him understand why he should stay confident, studying, preparation, and then be ready for how teams will attack him and let him go play ball.
When you hear somebody make a comment like he made after the game, do you ever just cringe or do you?
I laugh, man. Listen, that's what it is. That's what it's about, to be young, be energetic, confident. Listen, he was happy to be out there. He's obviously played a little bit this year, but, find out Jay Mills isn't going to be able to go. I like the guy that's like, all right, I'm ready, and not the guy like, man, I didn't know. I don't know how. Jack was ready to go, and I think you can appreciate that. And, after the game, he made a comment. He made a great play in the game, made a comment about it. I think in the locker room, we'll make a big deal about that. It is what it is. You just got to make sure he doesn't give up any outs now.
All right, let's just give you a little background on Jack Jones, because we went over this at the time when he was drafted. Again, fourth-round pick out of Arizona State, played under Herm Edwards, former NFL defensive back himself, obviously former NFL defensive coach, head coach, got some really good coaching, which Bill Belichick has referenced in the past when talking about Jones, whether it was in the spring or during the summer, during training camp. But his background, he started at USC. He played in 13 games as a reserve in his true freshman season. Okay, so he's a very highly rated high school prospect. He ends up making 13 tackles, 1 pass breakup, sort of a nondescript first season, though he is playing as a true freshman at a really highly touted program. The next season, in 14 games, he started all 14 games as a sophomore. He comes up with 4 picks and 8 pass breakups. He was eventually ruled academically ineligible for the 2018 season, gets dismissed from the school. He goes to Moore Park College to get his grades in order. Then he enrolls at Arizona State for the 2019 season. In that season, he comes up with 3 more picks, 13 pass breakups. And so there's a trend starting to develop here. When he's on the field, the guy is an absolute ball hawk. 2020, another rocky season for him. He only played in 1 game. They only had 4 games there at Arizona State. That's the COVID season, obviously, but he was also suspended for violating team rules at one point that year. 2021, he comes back. He's honorable mention, all conference in the Pac-12 there. 3 forced fumbles. Okay, so there are those ball skills again. 3 picks and 6 pass breakups in 11 games. The guy knows how to find the football. And he was not necessarily thought of as a high round pick because of the off-field stuff. But you speak to evaluators who talk about his coverage ability. Clearly that's there. The only question I think for some was how well it would translate, because he was not the most athletic guy in the world. End up running a 4.51 40 at the combine. We end up talking to him about that. You'll hear about that a little bit later in this episode. But I wanted to find out, just number one, after hearing his comments in Green Bay, why is he so confident? But number two, one of the things we've heard about him consistently, really dating back to the summer from some of his veteran teammates, whether it's Devin McCourty or Jabril Peppers, he has great feet, and his ability to transition and change direction is really special. And so I wanted to ask him if that's always been the case, if that's something that he has had to work on over the course of his career. How did he develop those instincts that seem to be really well honed already at this early stage of his pro career? So we were able to run into Jack Jones in the Patriots locker room this week. Our conversation spans a number of different topics here, but we're really going to start just right with that play, that pick six play against Aaron Rodgers. How did he do it? Did he have his eyes in the backfield at all? Was he trying to sniff out where Rodgers was going to go with that pass before he actually went there? Or what was his read on that particular play? He tells us that and much, much more, including how he has reacted to some of the reaction to his disrespectful comment at Lambeau Field after the game. You're going to love that answer. The bravado, the confidence, it's all there for Jack Jones, but he was very measured in our conversation as well. I had a lot of fun chatting with Jack, and so here's that conversation for you right now.
You gotta find like a sweet spot in there because I'm definitely a guy that can have bad eyes, and my eyes sometimes will get me beat and get me in trouble. So you gotta kind of find like a sweet spot to where you break down on the receiver, drive out 3 to 4 steps, just get a good drive phase, get your eyes on the receiver. But like I said, that's tough. You don't really want to look at the quarterback too much, but if you can get a peek back there, because it's a lot of times where the ball goes right by the DB head, and if DB just turn his head, he can make a play on the ball.
One of the things though that's interesting, watching that play the other day, is just how quickly you were able to break on it. So when you do that, is that just you looking at the receiver there?
Yeah.
Trying to get a key off him.
Yeah, that one was strictly looking at the receiver. I played a little receiver, so I kind of understand concepts. Of course, we have a good coaching staff, good defense. So when we watching film and they breaking everything down, they break everything down to a T. So I just kind of learn from them and pay attention in the film room and pay attention to the keys. Just take the film room to the field.
One thing that Devin has said about you before is great feet. Yeah. Is that something that you've heard a lot about your game over the years?
Yeah, that's something I take pride in. I'd rather beat somebody with my feet rather than my hands, because everybody can use their hands and win, but, it's different type of players that use their feet and win.
And is that, to me, the way he was describing it, it sounds like that just means the ability to transition quickly. Is that what you think of when you hear that kind of compliment?
Yeah, I would think so. Getting in and out the breaks, opening the hips, drive phase, stuff like that, yeah.
And is it difficult for you to do it with both feet? That may sound like a stupid question, but we've seen you on both sides of the field, right? And I remember you making a play that was almost really similar to the pick that you made in Green Bay against the Giants, I think in the first preseason game, which was going the other way. Yeah. And I think you planted off the other foot. So are you an ambidextrous sort of transitioner here at corner?
I don't really think so. I think with that one, if you really watch that play, I had a good jump on it. I kind of took a bad angle, but the quarterback also seen me jump the route, so he kind of held it for a second and then put the ball where it was supposed to be. But I wouldn't say I have a preference for. I don't know for which foot I break off of.
Well, it sounds like just talking to some of the veteran guys. For instance, Jabril Peppers. He said, "Man, Jack," and he mentioned Marcus too. Marcus Jones. Man, these guys have great feet. He said, "I don't know where Bill finds these guys, but that's something that." This is Jabril saying this now. He says, I could work on that every offseason, my entire career, just to get as good as I could be at that, but I'll never be where those guys are already as rookies. When you hear something like that, what does that mean to you?
That means a lot, especially coming from the players that you play on the field with. But, we all have our strengths and our weaknesses. If I could be his size and run around like he could, it'd be great, but, like I said, we have our strengths and our weaknesses, but, we all have a little bit of this and that, so it all works out. We come together.
How much does that ability to transition make up for, what we see at the Combine? I know you're not necessarily a 4.2 kind of guy, right? Yeah. So how beneficial is having that ability to change direction quickly?
I actually think I'm faster than I know I ran a 4.5 at the Combine, but I'm faster than 4.5 at the Combine. I was dealing with injuries. I was going through some stuff, But I think I'm faster than 4.5. So yeah, I think for one, I'm faster than 4.5, and two, it's just I'm blessed to have quick feet. That's all it is. Get out the break quick and just close out on a receiver.
Have you heard much about your comments after the game in Green Bay where you had that? I'll tell you, I thought it was a great quote where you said, "Hey, I think that's kind of disrespectful to me. I just take that as an affront if somebody tries to throw an out route on me." Have you heard anything about that in terms of blowback since that day?
I heard a little bit of backlash about that, but man, honestly, I don't think you could change how I feel because that's how I've been feeling since I was a kid. It's just like, it's kind of like you can look at it as a rebound. Like, you know what I'm saying? If the basket is here, you're there, and I'm here, and every time I'm grabbing a rebound over your head, it's like, what are you doing? Like, you're not doing your job. So it's just like more so I don't want to let that rebound go over my head. If the rebound is in front of me, then it's like, okay, I understand. Now I got to find a way to put myself in position to get in between, the ball and the receiver. But an out route, I'm out there, so it's no way. Especially in that being the farthest throw that you can throw in the field, sideways, I should say sideways. But with that being the farthest throw, and I don't know. I just think like, I don't. It's, good. I don't want to sound crazy or sound cocky or nothing like that. But it just. I don't want to say. I don't want to say it, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, totally.
There's no way I should be giving up an out route. I say that.
Well, and isn't the position that you play, isn't confidence really important?
Yeah, for sure. Confidence and letting things go, because at the end of the day, we have to have a lot of confidence, but we also have to have short-term memory because at the end of the day, we have to understand that these receivers in this league is very good. They're not average Joes, so they're going to catch the ball here and there, so it's about playing the next play.
I love the basketball analogy from Jack Jones there, where he's talking about why he doesn't think anybody should be able to throw an out on him. And as McCourty mentioned in the press conference this week, some pressure on him now. Better not give up any outs. But he said, listen, if you're trying to get a rebound and somebody's just reaching over you and plucking that rebound time and time and time again, you're probably not very good. And so that's what he was trying to say with those comments in Green Bay after the fact. I enjoyed them. I told him that. I assume Patriots fans enjoyed them as well, because even in New England, where people are thought to be players, are thought to be automatons, right? They're afraid to say anything. They don't want to tell us anything. They don't want to have a personality because people think that's the way Bill Belichick wants them to behave. And sometimes that is the case. Hasn't always been the case at that position here in New England, starting with Ty Law. And that's why I was confused by Ty Law's comments, WEEI, about how he hasn't really done anything yet and he shouldn't be talking that way. To me, that was one of the great parts of Ty Law's game, was the confidence there. And maybe he did a little bit different job in terms of being able to limit himself in terms of his early career public commentary. But Ty Law was as confident as they come. Bravado was there. Some brashness was there. I think that's part of what you need sometimes to succeed at that position. But I went and asked somebody who might know. Guy who started his career at corner, had a lot of success at corner, has now moved to safety, and again is now locker mates with Jack Jones, is able to be in Jack Jones's ear, show him the way as Jack Jones begins his pro career. That's Devin McCourty. I got a chance to meet up with Devin McCourty, talk to him about Jack Jones, talk to him about young defensive back play, about confidence, how important that is, and what their relationship is like, McCourty's and Jones's, as McCourty is clearly at one end of the spectrum in terms of where he's at in his career, and Jones is at the other. Another great conversation here with McCourty. Have a listen.
So you gonna write about how I saw this coming, or what?
Well,
I don't need that because I don't want to coach.
Well, listen, I would say that you are a great evaluator of young corners. You told me J.C. Jackson's rookie year that he tracked the ball as well as anybody that you've seen in New England, and he ends up
4 picks in 4 years,
having a lot of interceptions. So, great evaluator of young corners. What does it mean to have great feet?
Like that interception you watched. Like, I think if you watch it, he wasn't staring at the quarterback. It was all reaction to the receiver. So you're reacting. So most of the time when you react, you're going to be – the good ones are half a step or a step. Like Jack's feet when I think that was Lazard shut it down. Jack shut it down, and he was boom, boom, out of it, head back, ball. And you see, like, Lazard slips. Jack doesn't. Just, like, really good feet, being able to be going backwards, whether you're backpedaling, when you're open and running, and then stick one foot in the ground and get the other one going back in the direction that you want to go. When we see that as a DB, like, we watch a guy and we'll be like, man, like, he has really good feet. And we've seen that all throughout training camp, going full speed, a guy shuts it down. He takes 2 steps, and now he's going the other direction. And not everybody has that. Like, I wouldn't say you have to have that to be a really good corner, but when this guy is able to put together how they're attacking me, formations and stuff, and the talent he already has, he has a chance to be really good.
Why is that such a rare skill set? I ask because I remember, this is years ago now, actually at the Byron Jones Pro Day at UConn, and I was there with Josh Boyer. Mm-hmm. And this was after the Seahawks Super Bowl, so we knew Malcolm Butler had just made a great play, but we didn't know what kind of player he actually was. And we were watching, it was multiple DBs, it wasn't just Byron Jones. But he said, watch these corners as they try to change direction. Mm-hmm. With Malcolm, there's no wasted steps. Mm-hmm. He's good. Boy already knew at that point that he was going to start, and he obviously ended up having a good year in 15.
The team as a walk-on. So,
well, but why is that rare? You think, is that just innate? Is that God-given?
God-given. I remember when I was coming out, I was at the Combine, and Pat Robinson at Florida State was doing his DB drills, and I was like, damn, his feet, like, again, he was changing direction, no wasted movement, downhill, explosive. And I was like, man, like, he has really good feet. And like I said, like, you don't have to have that. Like, you don't have to have that kind of change of direction. But when you see guys with that, you know, like, they have a chance to be really good in this league, because as these receivers are getting better and they can do different things, like, those guys can change with them easily. Like, I would say, like, even when you watch Steph, like, Steph doesn't naturally have that when you watch him. But if you watch Steph, there's no wasted movement, and there's an anticipation and a patience about him that is very hard to find. Like, as good as Devontae Adams is, you go back and you watch 2018 Green Bay game, you watch he's one of the best release guys at the line, and you watch him doing everything, and you just see Steph like this. It looks like Steph's moving in slow motion, matching everything he does, because, like, that's a gift that he has. He can stay patient, calm. When you transition and run, he takes the right angle, transitions and run. Revis was very similar. Like, I would say if you watch Revis, you wouldn't walk away and be like, man, like, this guy's super explosive. This guy. But, like, if you watched him do a one-on-one, which I used to see in the offseason when we trained together, it would look like he was sitting on every route. And then a guy would be like, man, you're just sitting on routes. And they'd be like, go deep. And they would take off to go deep. And 4 steps before they went to go, he was open up and already read the route. And you'd be like, bro, how did... And it was just natural for him. So I think, from my time in the league, it's very unique to watch. I've had the fortune of being in this locker and seeing Talib, Revis, Steph, Mal. Like, I've had so many guys come in here that have been different kind of players, but really good football players, really good corners, and it's fun to watch.
How much do you relish now, at this point in your career, being so close to having the locker right next to somebody like Jack and trying to impart whatever wisdom you can?
Yeah, man, I would say not just Jack, all of these guys. Like, Jack's here, Doug's right here, Marcus a few down. Like, I think about some of these young guys that, the opportunity that they have. Like, I look at our secondary, and I look at Marcus, and I look at Jack, Miles, Doug, Jay Jones, and AP, kind of, the future old guys around here. And I think it's just fun to know that, like, what guys meant to my career, I have the opportunity to do that. When I got here, the Darius Butlers, the Lee Boddens, the Merriweathers, the freaking James Sanders, who used to tell me, dang near every route before they ran it, James would be yelling out, alert this, alert that. It's fun, I think, to just be able to be in that position to give these guys the opportunity that I had. it makes coming to work fun. Like I really enjoy that.
Last thing I'll ask you, and you were asked about maybe some of the confidence that Jack has shown. How important is that, you think, to have success at that position? I mean, you were a young guy who had a lot of success playing corner. You know what it takes there. How massive is that confidence level, especially in your first year, to help maximize whatever abilities you do have?
Yeah, man, I think, and each guy's different. Like, you guys were here when you would interview Steph, like, you could barely get anything out of him. And I think sometimes in the media we see, like, if we see a guy like him or Ramsey that's confident, we're like, yeah, he's good because he's confident. And you'll see a guy like Steph and you won't say anything because he's quiet. And I think that confidence is inside. And whether, like, this guy who, goes out there and says you shouldn't run it out on me, it's just like, that doesn't mean anything, but I think the way he plays shows his confidence,
What can we say? The guy understands what it takes to play defensive back at the NFL level. He was on it with J.C. Jackson. He's on it with Jack Jones. You better be careful. Somebody's going to be coming after him for a front office job. I'm not sure he wants that necessarily down the line after his playing days are over. I think he's actually probably coming for his brother Jason's job on Good Morning Football. Who knows? Maybe we're able to pluck him at NBC Sports Boston. Maybe he's hosting the next Pats podcast. I mean, don't take my job, but maybe we could function as a team with that thing moving forward. Just something to keep in mind. I'm sure he's listening right now. He's a big time listener of the Next Pats podcast. All right. So that's your Jack Jones content for the week. Really fun player to talk to, really fun player to watch. If you go back and you have the opportunity to watch some of his preseason snaps in that Giants game, he's very clear. That's his first time on a pro field against pro competition. And yes, it's week 1 of the preseason, but evident even then that he has the ability to read things out, make a break on the football, unlike a lot of guys can, even at the NFL level. I got to be honest, I didn't think he was the greatest fit for the Patriots in the world when they drafted him in the 4th round. I think I gave the grade for that particular draft pick based on the fit, right? So based on the athleticism, the size, he was very slight, not the fastest guy in the world. He had all these off-field issues that had limited him in college in terms of his ability to just stay on the field or stay at one program. Didn't necessarily scream Patriot, right? I think the grade we gave him that day at the time was a C-, but it was very clear very soon after we got to training camp that this guy had excellent ball skills and that he could play at the NFL level. I think one of my bold predictions for the end of training camp. So by the time training camp finishes, what is this team going to look like? Tom Curran and I both did bold predictions. My bold prediction was that Jack Jones was going to be a starter. And I missed on that one slightly because I didn't necessarily anticipate that they would try to bump Jonathan Jones outside and play opposite Jalen Mills with Miles Bryant in the slot. I thought it would be Mills, Jack Jones, and John Jones inside. That could be what we get moving forward here once Jalen Mills gets back on the field. That's what, to me, actually makes the most sense because I think Miles Bryant has struggled at times in the slot. I know the Patriots like Miles Bryant, but Jonathan Jones is one of the game's better slot corners, and he's been excellent on the outside, don't get me wrong. But if you can get your best 3 on the field by bumping John Jones back inside, opening up room for Jack Jones opposite Jalen Mills when Jalen Mills gets healthy, dealing with a hamstring right now, that might be your best group. And so maybe that end of training camp prediction will end up looking halfway decent. The draft day grade, certainly at this point, does not. Let's do some rapid fire mailbag questions. Love when we get these on a Wednesday, able to hammer some of them for the pod. First up is JSE922. Surprised to see the emergence of Jack Jones. I was going into the season thinking Marcus Jones was the better prospect. They both seem to be carving out nice roles for themselves. Be interesting to see if Marcus can work his way into the fold defensively. Again, if the Patriots are thinking Miles Bryant needs to have his role dialed back a bit, maybe they want to keep John Jones on the outside. Maybe they continue to deal with injury with Jalen Mills. You know, there's a permutation of this cornerback group if Mills is still injured, where you have Jack Jones and John Jones on the outside, and maybe Marcus Jones just slides right in and replaces Miles Bryant, depending on how that thing goes. But I think eventually we could start to see him defensively. He is just such a next level athlete right now, and I'm sure the Patriots would like to give him a little bit more seasoning defensively. But special teams wise, he looks like he can change the game. Jack Jones, the ability to turn the ball over, looks like he can change the game. They need these types of big time, explosive, field flipping plays, especially from your defense and your special teams, if you're going to continue to be without your starting quarterback. So both these guys could end up playing huge roles. Both rookie Joneses could play huge roles for the Patriots in 2022. Next one from ATG8837 on Twitter. Can Jack Jones keep this up? Top ranked PFF corner to date. In terms of his coverage, the guy clearly can do it. Fascinated to see how things look against Detroit this week, see what his role is, see if Jalen Mills comes back. I think in terms of his coverage, he can, but there are people who question, including Tom Colo1, who checks in. He says, can we talk about how awful Jack Jones's tackling is? I'm not sure that's the thing to focus on the week after he had the game that he had, Tom, but your point is a good one. Bill Belichick has long liked corners who can tackle, including Devin McCourty, who he drafted in the first round, because if you can't, offenses will try to seek you out. And the Packers, I thought, did a good job of that at one point. There was one drive in particular where all they did was run edge runs at Jack Jones. And even when he flipped sides of the field, they found him, they sought him out, they ended that drive with a Christian Watson end-around touchdown. So that's something he's going to have to figure out again. He's very slight. For him to be at the combine at 171 pounds, there just aren't many people in the NFL built that way. It's a conversation we've had, about Tyquan Thornton too, right? He's incredibly thin, contact probably not going to be his game. Now, Jack Jones can add to that frame. There's no question. I think he probably already has, based on how he looks to me. He already looks like he's put on a little bit of weight, but he's going to have to figure out how to be able to set that edge at times when offenses force him to do that. Jason McCourty actually did check in with a tweet during that Packers game. He said, listen, tackling can be as difficult a part of your job as a rookie corner in the NFL as the coverage aspect. You got to figure out when that receiver blocks down, it's on you to make the tackle. I think just working on that technique as we go here. Again, it's still relatively early in the season. You do hardly any tackling at all in the preseason, in training camp. That's something that I think he'll be able to improve, and you'll see him get better at some of those shoestring tackles that we see some slighter corners make across the league. A couple more here. John Dunphy checking in. He says, trade deadline less than a month away. Do you see the Patriots as buyers or sellers? Secondly, do you hear anything about the progress of Lynn Bowden? As a fan of the Next Pats podcast, thank you very much, John. I remember him well and was excited by the addition, any chance he's elevated to the roster. So Lynn Bowden is on the practice squad still. And my understanding was he was Lamar Jackson during that week leading up to the Ravens game. So he played an important role in terms of trying to get that defense ready for Lamar Jackson. Turns out in that second half of that game, they ended up not being all that ready for it. But that's the kind of athlete that he is. Obviously, he can run, he can move, and he can throw a little bit. He has a quarterback background coming out of Kentucky, but primarily going to be working at receiver for the Patriots here. I think the progress has been just fine, but I don't think, because they are so deep on their active roster at the receiver spot, I don't think he's in line to be called up anytime soon. As far as the trade deadline, whether or not the Patriots are buyers or sellers, I think this next month is really going to dictate that. This is where they have to salvage their season. Several winnable games on the docket. Let's see how they perform. JT Sheehy 96 checking in. He says, Phil, first, we do need a Phil's travel journal. Discussion on Curran's pod was interesting. If you guys caught the last Patriots Talk podcast, you got every detail of my trip in and out of Green Bay. I'm happy. Gotten a lot of actually positive reaction to that. So happy to hear that people are fascinated by that. We got a couple more interesting trips coming up this year. So maybe we can dive into that a little bit deeper and hit you guys with whatever information you find interesting. Second, he says, what exactly have Wilson and McMillan done to fall out of favor so fast? Isn't it really early? I'm skeptical of bringing Collins back for version 3.0. And a few of you actually had linebacker questions when it comes to how this group is currently comprised, because whether it's bringing in Jamie Collins or wondering what happened to some of these lighter, faster guys, like our buddy John A. Limbaraka says, lighter, faster, stronger at inside linebacker fizzled out pretty quickly. Is it more that the new players didn't work out, or the organization wants to find bigger inside linebackers again in the future? Find better, smaller guys? Question. All of the above? Question. Somebody wants to know, Cam, Ben, and Bridge, our buddy Mark Vogel, he says, where's Hightower at? Any sense? Hightower is with his family. I think he's enjoying that right now. I'm interested to try to check in and do some digging and see if he has any interest in coming back, because if you bring in Jamie Collins back and you still want to use Jawan Bentley across situations, this is probably what you're looking at moving forward. The Patriots may be saying to themselves, and Bill Belichick in particular, it's great if a guy is fast. It's not great if the fast guy doesn't really know where he's going. The old adage Gerard Mayo used to tell us all the time, you'd rather have a 4.8 guy who knows where he's going versus a 4.5 guy who doesn't. And I think that's the issue right now. For Raekwon McMillan to get 0 defensive snaps, I know he's dealing with a thumb injury, but he played on special teams. He was available in Green Bay. 0 snaps defensively. Mack Wilson gets 10 snaps defensively in favor for and gets replaced by Jelani Tavai, who is sort of that old school Patriots 250-pound Matt Patricia, Bill Belichick style linebacker. No surprise. Matt Patricia, ends up investing highly in Jelani Tavai. I believe he was a second-round pick a few years ago when very few people were thinking he would go that high. So that to me is the problem there with some of these more athletic players at the second level. I agree, though, it is early to move on from them. I think they probably just need more work. I don't think they're going to permanently be in the doghouse. If you want to make that move, and Matt Groh is very open talking about how the league is changing. You need smaller, faster guys at the second level now, and they do have a few in their safety group, obviously, that can handle some of those roles. But if you're moving on from Mack Wilson, I think that's ignoring some of the splash plays he can make, like he made in Pittsburgh, where he helps create an interception because he's a great athlete. Bill Belichick says after that game, I'm not sure how many guys can even make that play in coverage. So I don't think you want to completely get away from that just yet. I think you have to try to make sure you're working these guys in before you give the keys to a grouping that consists of Jamie Collins, Jawan Bentley, and Jelani Tavai, because I think, just as much as a athletic linebacker who may not understand all of his responsibilities can be exposed, so too can a bigger, stronger, yes, but maybe slower linebacker group. All right, that's it for the mailbag. That's it for the Jack Jones Extravaganza. Thanks for listening to Next Pats, guys. We'll be hitting you with another Next Pats episode. Hoping to have some great guests lined up for the remainder of October here. So make sure you stay tuned, see who we've got. We'll talk to you then.